Hey guys, welcome back to the Detour Live. It's Thursday night in Australia, or Thursday morning if you're in Europe. Appreciate your company. I'm your host, Dan Jones, joined as always, four-time national road champ, Johnny Trevorrow, and he has not missed a beat. He's got the Lexus of Blackburn Bay Crits sponsors banner in the background.
Sorry.
You really know we're building up for the summer of cycling when the iffy just pumping out as much back scratching promotion for the sponsors as possible. It's fantastic.
I'm sorry, Dan.
Welcome, John. Welcome.
I didn't realise I had that up in the background, Dan. Sorry about that. But there you go. We've got the launch on Tuesday. It's all about to be publicised. So, yeah, Lexus Blackburn Bay Crits is about to be publicly announced on Tuesday. But exciting stuff.
Now, before we get to our special guest, who is, of course, Nathan Haas, and he's making the transition from road cycling to gravel, looking at the top news stories on cycling news, as we always do, Mark Cavendish. I mean, I'm a big fan of sort of true crime stories on Netflix, but this one, what a horrific story. He got burgled at knife point with him, Peter, and the kids, and they're obviously trying to hunt down the perpetrators. They've knocked off a couple of watches, but when I read that, I was just like, you see it on the news, but when it links to either an athlete or rider or someone that you've met before, you just
someone we know.
Surreal.
Exactly.
Surreal.
It is.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's injured, broken ribs and all of that, one arm's not working, it's a really low act. And for masked bandits, evidently no truth to the rumour that one of the bandits was his mechanic. There's no truth to that rumour. But no, I'm being flippant, but that is a terrible story. And it was obviously very horrific. Cav is a pretty tough character. But you're there with your wife and your children, and you've got knife-wielding bandits. They got away with two watches that I can imagine they'd be worth a gazillion each. And they had special, significance to him, he said. But he's more just upset. I mean, I can imagine it'll be like Fort Knox after this. There'll be security cameras everywhere. Whatever. Yeah. But you wouldn't think you would have had to go that far. But anyway, terrible story. Yeah.
And we've got a special episode of Detour coming up on Sunday with our old mate Scotty Sunderland, because we have had a lot of comments since they've announced that the World's going to be in Australia next year at Wollongong. People want to know more details about the course, and they're going to be announcing that. Is it tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Announcing the course tomorrow. I've spoken to someone who has driven around it. They said it's a very tough course. So we'll know all about that tomorrow. And we're going to be talking to Scotty Sunderland. He's in Belgium still, but he is the race director and a perfect man for the job, really. He's race director of the Tour of Flanders and all the Flanders Classics. Speaks about 5 languages. It's about 4 more than us. Maybe 5 more than us.
5 more than us, yeah.
And, he's a very good operator, race director of the Cadell Evans Road Race as well. So, yeah, it'd be great to talk with him, a special edition on Sunday. And I know I'm getting texts all the time from mates of mine. Where's the course? They want to know where they're going to stay and all of that. I said, Wollongong. It's all I can tell them.
Yeah. Now, before Hussey gets on, it always makes me nervous when I speak to you just before we go live and looking for insights on the questions, and you'll just go, mate, got this sorted. And that generally means that you haven't, and you just got to wing it. But, I mean, what are some of the things you want to get out of Nathan today on today's show, Johnny?
Well, you'll ask all those, in-depth questions, I know. But
fluff.
It's pretty easy because I've, since he first turned to road racing, when he was first with Andrew Christie Johnson racing which was the Genesis team, or Praties, I think as it was first called. I watched him race then. He had a great year. I think it was 2011, I think, when he won the Jaco Hurlson Tour, and he creamed him. He also won the Japan World Cup that year as well. So he always looked like he was going to be a serious bike rider. And you don't last 10 years in the World Tour unless you have got some real ability. So it'd be wonderful to talk to about some of those things. He's been with some of the biggest teams in the world. And he's made that decision to have a bash at the gravel racing in his own way. So really interesting to see how that is exploding, and looking forward to talking with Nathan about all of that.
All right. Well, Nathan joins us live now. Nathan Haas, welcome back to the Detour podcast, mate. How are you traveling?
I'm great, Jonesy. How are you, man?
Pretty good. Pretty good. We were just talking iffy then. I don't know how much you caught. We tried to get a decent introduction. He went over a couple of the highlights, and obviously the big talking point at the moment, mate, is you switching from the road to the gravel. What is going on?
Well,
we've lost you, mate. You're in the dark. You're in the dark. There you go.
There we go.
Can you see me now? Good.
Yes. Yep.
We're good. To answer your question, Jonesy, what's going on is just, I'm following my heart into a new discipline of cycling, and I think it's a way for me to explore my interest in a new discipline that's growing. And I've come to a point where after 10 years in the World Tour, I realize I'm not going to be Peter Sagan tomorrow. I'm not going to be world champion all of a sudden. It's something that offers the possibility for me to maybe define myself as I can be. So I'm really excited to step across.
Mate, you're gonna have to move to the room that your Wi-Fi box router is in. We're just having a few little tech issues. That's all good, mate. I know what Girona's like with Wi-Fi coverage. There we go.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible, actually.
Not that we ever have many issues with Wi-Fi.
No, we used to that on this program.
As it's being... Yeah, I'm not going to bring up the NBN or anything.
No. Sorry, if you're going to say something.
Well, I was just going to say, you're heading to the gravel. That's how you started your career. You started off as a mountain biker. You were a serious mountain biker, right? Like racing in World Cups in mountain bike. So does it feel like almost you're heading back home in some ways?
Yeah, it does, to be honest, John. And the feeling for me of being a cyclist is not that I'm a road cyclist. It's not that I'm a mountain biker. It's not that I'm a gravel rider. It's just that I love racing my bike. And, if I'm honest, I feel like I've gotten a little bit bored of road racing in the last few years. Maybe as well, I'm not as good at road riding as I used to be. So maybe that's part of it. But, the new challenge ahead of me just looks so exciting and inviting. And, speaking to a lot of my ex-teammates that have now made that jump across to gravel, like Pete Stettner, Ian Boswell, Alex Howes, Ted King, these guys are kind of the big players in the gravel scene. And, every time I speak to them, it's like they're the happiest they've ever been. And not that they weren't happy doing road racing, but it's just a whole new world to explore. And for me, it feels like a bit of a full circle coming from off-road to road, back to off-road, and all in a whole different discipline that's just evolving. It feels like I'm swapping over to sort of be part of a new part of cycling history.
Mate, how detailed is the process of when you say you're switching to gravel? And then I read the article that you're saying you're essentially going to be riding for yourself. How do you pick the races? How do you pick your schedule? And is there some cashola, to turn a few bucks out of this as well?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't do this if there wasn't cashola. I'm not. I didn't have a career like some guys where I never have to work again. But it's interesting. You're actually kind of building it up as a business instead of having one contract that you get your money from your team and you get taken to the races. It's now you're actually building up a piece, like a photo kind of from lots of puzzle pieces, so to speak. So, you get a bike sponsor, clothing sponsor, nutrition sponsor, eyewear sponsor, helmet, shoes. There's lots of spaces that you can get income from. But the cool thing is you're actually, in my opinion, I think you're actually offering more return on investment than, a sponsor that sponsors a World Tour team and just gets a sticker on the side of the bus, because the whole thing's about storytelling and kind of inspiring people to actually get out on the gravel bike and try this whole So yeah, I've sort of been 4 or 5 months building up this small company business, so to speak. And to be honest, Jonesy, I've had so much fun doing it. It's amazing reaching out to all of the connections and friendships that you made over a decade in the sport, and seeing the enthusiasm even just from the industry side of gravel. How excited everyone is to get into it.
Yeah, so I was going to say, Nathan, so this year there were a few gravel races, but they got really good publicity. But the plan next year is for a whole series and even a world championships. But it's a very different setup. It's not just the top pros. It's sort of open entries. So how do you guarantee that you're going to get a start in some of these races?
Well, that's a good question, John. And it's actually something that I've been speaking to a few of the race promoters about, because, if people are going to be making the decision to become a professional in gravel, and you can't promise your sponsors that you're even going to be at the races, these non-UCI sanctioned events, they're priding themselves on the sort of like inclusivity that anyone can be there. But at the same time, the New York Marathon and the London Marathon, they're kind of also defined by which professionals are at the start of the race. And in those races, the professionals are even paid to be there. So, I think that that's a direction that gravel will sort of change into as the professional side of it grows. But one of the things that I'm really excited about as well is now that there's the UCI gravel series, so there's a World Cup series next year and the World Championships, is that if you're a professional rider, or the serious gravel rider, that's your entry point. You don't have to get into a lottery to get into that. So it's, a lot of people are sort of saying, they're really against the UCI getting involved. But the way I see it sort of from a professional side, if you're actually trying to build a company and ensure to your sponsors that you're actually going to get race days, then I think the UCI is doing it the right way. So there's two sides to the coin, but generally speaking, if you have sponsors that sponsor the big races, all the sponsors actually get entries for their riders. So, I don't think it's going to be hard for me to get into the big races. And I think a lot of them I'm already kind of organized to be in. But it does seem a little bit odd to me that these huge profile races that define a rider, if you win Unbound, that's essentially the unofficial world championships of gravel. And, you might miss out because you weren't in luck when it came to the raffle draw. So I think that's a little bit odd. But, it's each to their own, and I respect the organizers for what they do.
So you're talking about Ian Boswell earlier. He's obviously tearing it up in the States, where they're going to be pretty reluctant for the UCI to get involved. Gravel sounds like it's just exploded over there. Is that obviously a place that you want to go test the waters and do well in over in the US?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be racing in the US, but I'm sort of trying to see the project from a different side of the pond. I'm in Europe, and that's my plan, is to stay here. And the American riders have the luxury right now of saying that they don't like the fact that the UCI is getting involved, but that's because they have probably 3 races countrywide every single weekend over summer. And these riders are actually choosing which gravel races to go to. So they don't need the UCI to get involved. But right now in Europe, we don't have that many gravel races. So if the UCI next year is coming together and saying we're going to put on 8 to 10 serious gravel races next year with some points and some cash and some kudos, and most of all, the organization and safety from the UCI being involved, I say bring it on. The European scene can only grow if we grow it from within. But my plan is to do every big race in Europe, but then also just go to the biggest ones in America to make sure that we're sort of cross-referencing the level of European racing and results that I'm hopefully going to get in Europe to hopefully kick some ass over in America as well, and school the guys and be like, maybe you guys got to come over to our side of the pond.
Oh, for sure, mate. Just before you say anything, John, could you open that door up and tell those kids to shut up? I want Arnold Schwarzenegger style on Kindergarten Cop.
I've been told to tell you guys all shut up.
Thank you. Thank you. I thought to myself when we were interviewing Nathan, I thought, who have you got over there, Hussy? Like, it sounds like a party. And then I'm thinking, hang on, it's iffy.
It's my grandkids. Sorry about that.
getting a bit extra cash with the kindergarten at the house now, Jonesy.
Yeah, that's right. It's not a tumor.
So, by the sounds of it, you're looking at getting could get 20, 30 races in? Is that the plan?
Yeah, I think 20 will be a big season. And, it sounds like not much when you compare it to a race season of like 80 to 90 on the road, but you don't have tours. They're all one-day races. There's one race in Kenya called the Migration Race, which is a 4-day stage race. But that's essentially the only stage race of the entire season. So if you're having 20 races, that's 20 weekends away. And that's, on either side of that, a lot of travel days. So it doesn't sound like many days, but yeah, I'm aiming for about 20 race weekends for the season, which I think is realistic. But, there's this whole new level of upskilling now, which is I'm the one booking the tickets, organizing the travel, how I'm doing it, all of the things that I haven't had to do as a road cyclist. So it's quite enlightening. And, I now all of a sudden have sympathy for the race organizers. When you get to a race in France, and you're like, this fucking hotel is so bad. Like, how do they put professional hotels like this? And then all of a sudden you're booking it with your own money, and you're like, well, maybe that hotel's not so bad.
Yeah. Do you think obviously being part of something from the ground up and choosing to predominantly base yourself in Europe, it's a real opportunity to work in with the UCI and help develop and give that feedback and to make sure that package in 3 to 5 years time is really humming. But it's a lot more exciting being part of something that's developing rather than trying to come into something that's already established.
Yeah, I think that was a big attracting point for me, Jonesy, was the fact that, I've been riding gravel for a long time now, like a long time. Before they were even called gravel bikes, they were just called cyclocross bikes that you took wherever you wanted. Now they're called gravel bikes, and now the sport of gravel riding is exploding. And I think we have a big responsibility in terms of the riders that are really into it from the start to make sure that the sport keeps its own flavor and flair before it becomes too much of anything else. And that is why a few people are a little bit hesitant for the UCI to get involved, because they're worried about the changes in the regulations and the rules. But that being said, Jonesy, is that as this becomes more professional and it becomes people's paycheck and it's going to become competitive. I mean, Pete Stettner is, he's earning a pretty penny right now, and he brings a private mechanic to his own races. We're going to need some controls as well. We'd be fools to think all of a sudden, if there was big money involved in gravel, that people wouldn't have the temptation to be doping. And in my opinion, the whole gravel world is going to need to actually look forward and not just sort of look at where it is now. It is a bit of a counterculture sport, like mountain biking was in Australia, in the early 2000s. But I think a lot of people are sort of looking at mountain biking in America and Australia and are fearful because they had this hot product that everyone was loving, and then it died out. So I think the gravel world is also kind of scared to not die out. But speaking about getting the structure right, I had a call with Mick Rogers a few weeks ago, and I sort of said to him, I went, this whole gravel thing is evolving and changing, and I think that the UCI could actually help themselves by having a rider representative, like an athlete council for gravel. And it was something that he hadn't thought of, and I think that would be a clever way to kind of bring it all together, as well as to make sure that the UCI is making decisions based on people that are actually in the sport, as opposed to just looking at it from the out. So I think there's a responsibility for the riders getting involved at the start, but at the same time, maybe it's also nice to just let it morph into what it's supposed to be on its own in an organic way.
I reckon you're going to get a lot of support from the cycling industry because, as you mentioned earlier, Nathan, it's exploded. It's exploded in bike sales. And you go to a bike shop now, and there's gravel bikes everywhere. 2 years ago, they were hardly there. And so I think that's you're going to get a lot of support from the industry because they're going to want to see it, the sport really not just evolve. I think this year or next year, 2022, I think we'll see a really strong gravel series. I think it's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, from the industry side of things, it's like, I started to make a few phone calls in July, August, when I was entertaining the idea of going over cross full gravel. Because when I heard that the World Cup series was on and the World Championships, the first World Championships was going to be on, I thought, man, how can you not be part of the first one? Like this is a huge opportunity to kind of get that like career defining win. And also something that you love doing. So I started calling up some bike companies, and honestly, John, it was like fending them off. As soon as I sort of let them know that I'm thinking about doing this, like, all right, how do we get in? How do we kind of come in? How do we make sure that we're with you? And you're like, well, and then you're speaking to the next company, and it's the same enthusiasm. And when you're hearing from guys like Dan Benson at Cycling News that the article in June published about Ian Boswell winning Unbound got more impressions on the website than any other cycling story the entire month of June. And that's during the Dauphiné, during Tour de Suisse, coming up to the Tour de France. So when a gravel race is getting way more hits than anything else during the time of the Dauphiné and Tour de Suisse, you have to start thinking, this is going to start paying off in terms of, investment from industry. And, it's, for me, I think it's a tidal wave now. I don't think we're going to be able to stop it. And the really is, I think club racing on road it's just not really going to happen anymore. The way that it used to happen. It's harder to get road closures. Everything is harder to organize. In the States, there's basically no road races anymore because the cost to hire police to actually shut down the roads is nothing. But that's why the gravel scene has exploded over there, is because 4,000 people can race on the same course, all have the same fun day. And it's the same structure as these London marathons where, the front are racing, but everyone else is having a fun participation race, and you meet people on the road. It's really social. There is a competitive nature, but that's not the essence of it. The essence of gravel is that it's inclusive, not exclusive. And it's when you go to these events, John, it's like there's something magic happening. Everyone is just happy. Everyone is really encouraging of each other. And, there's no one chopping into a corner to crack because that's not their race. It's just, there's a lot more respect. And I think when I see some of the races, I did one in Italy where I think at least 50% of the participation was female. I was pretty inspired by that because, I think getting more people on bikes, and especially more women at bike events, is a huge goal for everyone in sport, in the sport of cycling. And when you see it on gravel, I think that's also one of the reasons why the sport's going to grow, is it's just purely inclusive.
Do you feel like road cycling is sort of like Coachella and gravel is a bit more like Woodstock?
Sorry, Jonesy, John cut you off.
It's cut out. I was just going to say, in terms of as a music festival, does it feel like road cycling's Coachella and that gravel racing's more like Woodstock, the 69 Woodstock?
What's the huge music festival that happens every year?
Glastonbury.
Here in Europe? Tomorrowland. I feel like road is more Tomorrowland.
Oh, yeah.
I got to tell you, a couple of years ago, I was working.
Don't know, man. Please don't get me wrong. I still love it.
Oh, mate, there's a bit of a delay. You know what we're going to do? Hussey, you click the link again. We're going to go to a quick drinks break. It'll reset the link, and then that might trim up the delay, and then we can really dial up the banter for the second half, and we can talk about a bit more of the road stuff. So we'll go to a drinks break. Re-click the link. We'll be back.
What am I supposed to do? Click.
Re-click the link. I'll boot you off. I'll explain it in the drinks break. We'll be back soon with more Nathan Haas.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike. 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match, but not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Life is like a two-way street. It's about consideration and mutual respect. Roads are much the same. However you get around, walk, ride or drive, if we share our roads, we can all be safer. The Amy Gillett Foundation is Australia's peak cycling safety charity. Our mission is for safe cycling in Australia. Our vision is for 0 cyclist deaths. Over the last year, we've seen an enormous increase in people taking up cycling, whether it be for recreation, with the family, commuting, or even to start your own cycling career. We need to do more to make it safer for every cyclist. 20 cyclists every day are hospitalised, and 1 cyclist is killed every 10 days on Australian roads. So, the next time you jump on your bike or hop in your car, remember to practice the 4 C's. Be courteous, calm, considerate, and conscientious. Every cyclist death is preventable, and we all deserve to get home safely. Please donate to help the Amy Gillett Foundation make the roads safer for you and for me.
Let's get into Bike Exchange and the Amy Gillett Foundation. Now, Hussey, last time we had you on the show, we were talking about COVID and how you'd had COVID, and obviously it was a really tough period. Have you had any long-lasting effects of COVID-19? Might have clogged up your Wi-Fi.
It's affected his hearing.
No, I joke. No, thankfully. Oh man, what's going on?
I don't know, mate. The internet is we don't worry. We have this problem a lot of times on the detour, but it might be a problem with Girona and the NBN.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
You still there, mate? Or you keep talking, John.
Well, I was just going to say, a couple of years ago, Baden Cook and I looked at doing an event in at Mount Buller, and it would have been what they call a gravel race now. It didn't call it that back then. A fantastic race, starting at the summit of Mount Buller, heading down off-road, round to the back and doing a lap of Mount Sterling and then climbing back up. And only the first and last kilometre would have been bitumen. Sensational course. Then, it didn't happen for a whole stack of reasons, but then COVID hit and it's been put on the back burner. But I can tell you, we'll be looking at getting that up and going again. Yeah.
With the gravel races, obviously, you can ride at wineries. You don't have to ride on closed circuits. And Hussey was making the point before, and I think when we had Michael Rogers on, was talking about the same thing. The logistical benefits of doing it on the gravel. Is it also? There sounds like there's a little bit different atmosphere. It's a little bit more like the cyclocross. It feels more like an outdoor event, as opposed to something that's a bit more suburban.
Yeah, very much so. But even more than that, because they managed to bring in that recreational side to it, like a competitive recreational side, where you get thousands of people at this at the events. It really is something special, Hussey, he's back.
How are you, mate? Can you hear us?
Mate, I hope my gravel career is better than this connection, because this is not going well.
It's going perfectly now.
It's better now. It's better now.
Yeah,
we were just saying earlier, have you had any long-term effects of COVID?
No, thankfully I haven't. It's it's a ball ache of a thing to get over. And, I had a really bad case where I had COVID pneumonia, and it was, in a cold and hard time of the season. But the one thing that I definitely noticed was that for the rest of the season, I never found my legs again, not in the way that you can get up and actually win a bike race. And, that was unfortunate to kind of get into to the tail end of my season, knowing that I was just never going to have that, real punch. I was getting really fit and strong, but I just felt like I never really recovered. And, this off season, I've taken 6 weeks off the bike, and I feel fantastic again. And I think it was just, I needed to have enough time, just to actually get my head above water for long enough to really recover. Whereas, it's that typical thing where as an athlete, you just want to kind of get back as fast as you can. And, I took the time I thought I needed, but it probably still wasn't enough. But yeah, that was a hard thing to deal with, and definitely frustrating.
I was going to ask you about the Worlds in Flanders. You looked to be having a really good time, I got to say. But you rode quite well. You got up the front. You had a bit of a bash. But just how special was it? It seemed to be just staggering, the crowd involvement. Just tell us about it.
Oh, it was a pretty special thing, to be selected. And then, for me, that became my last really big focus for my road career. I wasn't having the best of time at Cofidis. Towards the end of the year, it was just felt like I kept getting sent to all these, crappy small French races. And, to have the Worlds there as sort of my carrot, knowing deep down in my heart that was going to be my last season on the road. It was a big deal. And then we were on the bus before the start of the race, and we were read out a letter from Dave Sanders from Victoria, as we all know, and he wrote some pretty special words for us all before the start of the race, and it was along the lines of, this is the World Championships in Flanders. Every cyclist in the world wishes they could do a World Championships in Flanders. And there's a lot of good Australian cyclists, but you're all here for a reason. And, I think everyone on the bus just, our skin got all prickly, and I think we all had a little bit of a tear in our eye. And, we were so motivated for that day. And I think we just had a lot of bad luck on the day, losing guys like Durbo and Miles Scottson, really early for unnecessary reasons. And then, the French attacking the hell out of the race and kind of playing a tactic that none of us expected. But, I was really proud of the way I rode that day, getting up the front, and then having a bit of a fight with the Van der Poel, because he's such an entitled little dude. And then, doing the best of my job I could. And then when I realized I was dropped and out of the race, deep down in my heart, like, I realized that, this is the last time I'll represent Australia on the road at World Championships. And, it was going up a few of those last hills, and, for me, it was a little bit of a swan song to road. People didn't know it at the time when I was waving, but, I felt like I was waving goodbye to the fans of road cycling. And for me, it was, I think it's going to go down as one of the most incredible feelings and emotions I've had in cycling. Flanders was just spot on.
Now, all that's fantastic, but you've skimmed over what really made my ears prick. What happened with Van der Poel? He's entitled, let's be honest.
Evenepoel.
Evenepoel, not Van der Poel. You need to get that right. What happened out on the road?
When the guys in the first and second, when did these guys in cycling become so, like, headstrong and feel like they can just come and yell at riders? It's just like, that in my first years, I actually probably would have been crashed off the road. Like, I remember seeing Robbie Hunter, basically smack coming and talking to him the wrong way. And now there's really no respect for the older riders in the Peloton. But, I got into that big breakaway of 22, 23 riders, and it was represented by every country but Italy. I was really glad I put myself there, because it meant we didn't have to ride, but it was not the situation, Team Australia won. So I wasn't being the prick and getting in the way. But, there were a lot of guys sitting on behind me. So I was a little bit the gatekeeper between the guys, turning and not turning. And then Evenepoel comes up to me a few times and he's yelling at me saying, are you going to work? You're going to work. And I'm like, no, I'm definitely not going to work. And then he starts coming back and actually swearing at me. He's like, I won't use the expletives that he did, but he's calling me soft and I'm an idiot. And I
clot suck.
Like, what the hell are you doing? And then he came back and yelled at me. But then it actually wasn't on. And, I quickly warned him. I said, if you ever touch me again, I don't even care that we're in Belgium roads. Like, you're done. And then he came back and he apologized. Ooh. And then a third time he comes back and he starts yelling at me for not working. And then, I had to give him a few swift words that, again, I'm not going to repeat. But I used to think he was a pretty class rider. And I think World Championships, he just showed everyone that he's a little kid. And he's got a lot to learn.
Yeah, well, tactically, I think he stuffed up as well. I don't know what he was doing out there, but that's a different story. But it's interesting. You've had this great road career, and you've raced with some of the biggest teams. I mean, going back here, you started off with as a mountain biker, and then got in with Andy Christie Johnson. How important was he in taking on the beginning of that road journey?
Bit of a delay.
How important was who, sorry?
Andrew Christie Johnson in those early days when you started racing on the road.
I missed it, John. Sorry, it just clipped out when you said.
Well, the thing is
that Andrew Christie Johnson in those early days.
I love it when we get these Wi-Fi issues, and it's like you're trying to talk to an operator that's overseas, and you're trying to get a simple problem fixed. My phone line is down, or I had a big fight with Siri the other day when I was trying to ring my brother-in-law. She said, "Which number do you want?" And as many times as I told her, number 2. Yeah, it's exactly the same. So, but that's all right. It's all right. The thing is, we've already done a really good interview with Nathan early in the year, and we went through your whole career and all those sort of things. And John talked about Andy Christie Johnson. So, and I did warn John before, and I said, "Come on, mate, let's freshen up the questions." So, why don't we ask more stuff around?
Well, I've got a very important one. A very important one. If you look behind me, I'll move this way. Look. I just accidentally happened to have the Lexus Blackburn Bay Crits banner up. So I know
now
you arrive.
Business.
Now the Wi-Fi's come good.
Now I know you arrive a few days before the Bay Crits. You're coming back to Australia early Jan. So hey, what better way to start the season? I know it's not gravel, but you've been a part of the Bay Crits for a lot of years, so well, maybe later the gravel version, but we'd love to have you back, Nathan.
You don't have to answer that. You can blame the Wi-Fi.
Oh, John, maybe we're going to have to hop on a call privately after this to have a chat about it. So,
all right, we'll do that.
I thought maybe my last road race was done, but it's not.
Yeah, we've got a few comments.
The world's or the Bay Crits. I mean,
how do you want to go out?
Yeah.
G'day to Janice Ashcroft. Troy Collett wants to know, where will Nathan be based next year? Europe sounds Girona.
He did say he's staying in Girona. Yeah.
All right. Ian Thomas, you've got to laugh or you'll cry with these Wi-Fi issues. Alan Rankin says, I remember seeing Nathan win the 2011 Tour at Gippsland Racing in Sale and Painesville. He even got a signed King of the Mountains jersey by Team Genesis, some quality riders in that squad. Nathan, Steele Von Hoff, Pat Shaw, Anthony Giacopo, Kyle Marwood, Kane Walker, Jason Brigham, one other whose signature I can't read. Who would that be, John?
Joe Bloggs.
That's it. And as David said, and it cut out when Hussey was telling us what Remco said, spewing. So we'll have one final crack. Can you hear us now, Nathan? Yeah, Gary says it will depend on how much you're paying Nathan in appearance money. Look, we got a pretty nasty delay at the moment, but yeah, I think we got a really good app in there around all the Wi-Fi issues for sure. And then you want to wrap things up with Johnny?
Well, just you rode with some interesting teams. You know, as I mean, Garmin, Dimension Data, Katusha, Cofidis. Who was the best organised team that you rode with?
She's cooked, mate.
I think my two favorite teams definitely were Garmin and Dimension Data. I think they were definitely the most fun I spent time on. You know, it was a pretty special team, Garmin, when I first joined. The guys like Ida Hejjedal, Van der Velde, Zabriskie, Miller, Tyler Farrar, who's, you know, probably my best friend from cycling. And, you know, that was a really special team. You know, fault Jonathan Vaughters all you want. He's good at getting a mixed bag of lollies together and making it a pretty cool group of people. But yeah, part of why I'm, you know, making it the jump across to gravel so I can kind of get back to, you know, also some English speaking. I think you know, I speak French fluently and everything, but it's definitely something that you would have seen Jonesy at Mitchelton is, you know, when all the Aussies are together, they have a great time. And, you know, it's nice to be around your tribe and speaking your own language. And, you know, it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to is get, you know, the social side of it is as fun as, because, you know, I've definitely found that if you're not totally loving what you're doing and you invite, it's really hard to, and hopefully open the legs full gas.
Yeah, well, we've still got a few Wi-Fi issues, mate, so we might have to wrap up the interview, mate, but we're really looking forward to what you're going to be able to achieve, particularly on the gravel next year, because it is an exciting venture and it is fresh and there's nothing going to be stopping where this train's headed. So and also your blogs, you know, the fact that you are very savvy with how you write and how you articulate things, people will be able to follow the journey. So that's going to be something to look forward to as well, for sure. Iffy?
Yeah, I'd just like to wish you all the best, mate, because I reckon it's going to be an exciting challenge. I mean, as you said, it's exploding gravel cycling, gravel bikes. This year, they've just touched on it, but next year, it looks really exciting. You know, 20-odd races in Europe, hundreds in America, and a World Championships. Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. So just wish you all the best, mate.
All good? Just give us a thumbs up.
He's frozen.
He's frozen. It's a real shame. It's a real shame.
Yeah.
But it's sort of the balance between you're just hanging on to get the words, but then you're sort of like, yeah, but it's going to also be frustrating for the listeners. But no, it was fantastic to have Nathan on when we had him. But I mean, we got the guts of that. So as he said, it's just exploding the gravel racing next year. And Johnny, you're gonna have to. I think the Free Ranger was bang on. You're gonna have to look at a gravel version of the Bakerids, mate, for sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, we were looking at doing a cyclocross as a part of it, and it's funny how, you know, cyclocross was around long before mountain bikes, and it stayed. It's always been big in Europe, but now it's spreading right around the world. But gravel is sort of something a bit different. What's really special about gravel, which cyclocross can't do, is that mass participation side of it. So it's recreational / competitive. You know, they're racing their mates and whatever, and they're getting thousands of people doing it. So it's why it's going to explode. Interesting what he said about that race last year or this year, where in June, where they had more hits for the on that than any other race.
So article, yeah.
That's where that's where that sport's going to go. So it's going to be great.
Yep. Make sure you follow us, like, share, subscribe, youtube.com/The Detour Podcast. We'll be back Sunday night. We'll be chatting with Scotty Sunderland about the Worlds in Wollongong in 2022. We'll go through the course, all the details. Yes.
I just got a message from Nathan. He has given up. He says, tell the show and the fans, thanks for having me on. John, you have always been on the first step in all stages of my career, and I really appreciate the warm welcome from you to gravel. Also, and Jonesy, when are we doing a video of me taking you on your first gravel ride?
Oh, jeez. I'll be wearing elbow and knee pads for sure. I'll look out for that as well. All right. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks, Iffy. We'll be back again Sunday night. Get your accommodation ready to book for Wollongong next year for all the details around the world. We'll see you then.